This is Other State Champ Alex Thompson. This is Josh Elwer from the University of Northern Iowa, and you're listening to Potentially Dangerous on NDwrestle.
Hey, is this heaven?
No, it's Iowa.
From high school to international wrestling, on the mat and beyond, this is the Potentially Dangerous podcast with the guys from NDwrestle.
If you're a fighter, you like a fight. If you're an American, you like a fight. If you're an Iowa Hawkeye, you know you're going to get a fight.
Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes and all your podcast-friendly apps. And follow us on social media platforms at NDwrestle. Time to strap it up and get to the show.
When the whistle go.
All right, welcome back to Potentially Dangerous. This is episode 103. You got your regular host, Ross Bartachek, on the mic tonight, but unfortunately no Tony Hager. He's the guy that's usually, leading the call, but I got a great sub coming in. It's Rick Mathern. Rick, how you doing?
I'm doing really well, Ross. How's it going, man?
It's going well, man. Wrestling season's, we got a couple weeks in already for college. High school practice in Iowa started today as we record this. I know Iowa's, they opened their home schedule this weekend, and Tony and I are going to be there, and that's kind of a really big reason why we brought you in for this podcast, because you got some detailed knowledge you're going to be able to drop for us tonight, right?
Yeah, I like to consider myself the resident knowledge holder on NDSU wrestling, self-proclaimed, but I've been following very closely here recently, and I'm hoping that they will come down to the University of Iowa on Friday and then Northern Iowa on Sunday and have a respectable showing. Obviously, my expectation is to probably win Friday, and I think it's going to be tough sailing Sunday as I look at Northern Iowa's lineup. At the same time, I think there's some interesting matchups to look at, and I think for you, the Iowa folk out there, got to be excited about Cordell Eaton, coming back to Iowa. He had a pretty good year last year as a redshirt freshman, coming off a Bison Open victory, and has been dominant in the room and up in those parts, and so that should be a lot of fun just to see where he stacks with some of the guys that he's going to run into down here. So I'm excited about it. The one depressing part for me, Ross, I got to tell you, is I teach PE and I live in Peoria, Illinois. For those people out there that don't know, so I cover North Dakota wrestling from Peoria, Illinois. I used to coach up there. My wife got a residency match in Peoria, Illinois, where I had never been before in my life. But the positive end of it was, number one, my wife's going to be a doctor in another year and a half, so that's a positive. Financially speaking, but then the other positive is we're moving down to Big Ten country. I'm a self-admitted Hawkeyes fan. Love me or hate me for it. That's been true since my youth, and so immediately I came out here, and we're in the heart of Big Ten country, so that's pretty exciting as well. And I had offers from some Iowa fans in town here. They came up to me 2 days ago and they said, "Hey, Iowa's at Purdue this weekend. They have great tickets. They're a wealthier family in Peoria." I said, "Are you interested in using our tickets to the game?" And I was like, things were matching up so perfectly. I could have gone to NDSU at Iowa Friday and watched the rest of the duels, right? And then I could have gone to Iowa-Purdue at Kinnick, and I've never been to a football game at Kinnick, though I was at the wrestling match at Kinnick a couple years back. And it could have been a great weekend, and then I realized my wife has to work at 24. So thus is my life with 3 children. I will not be in Iowa City this weekend. About as depressed as I can be for that, Ross. But other than that, I'm ready to throw some knowledge at you, man.
Perfect. So a little more background just about what exactly you do. You were ND Headlock. Is kind of a partnership we teamed up with you to kind of revamp, but now you do NDwrestle. So for our listeners at home, Rick he's the guy in North Dakota for what we bring you here in Iowa. So he's just wanted to let fans know that this is a guy that's really knowledgeable from high school through the college. I mean, you follow the guys that go into senior level too. You're a wrestling junkie just like us, so I just kind of wanted to make sure that everyone knows that. I mean, you're NDwrestle for North Dakota.
Yeah, for me, when I moved down here, I was going to be a stay-at-home dad with my son, and I was like, what am I going to do with my life, right? And so I started this ND Headlock website. It was originally going to be started as just like a blog of me talking about wrestling-related stuff, and then, I just decided let's take it further than that, and let's cover North Dakota wrestling the way it should be, right? And I think that was kind of your guys' initial intent with IA Wrestle as well, okay? And so I'm thinking, man, our guys deserve way more, especially at the high school level. They deserve way more press than we're giving them. They deserve better rankings. They deserve better, just coverage overall, right? And so that's kind of what I started doing. And then obviously, you start to interact with people, and you guys got a hold of me, and ultimately, the partnership I think is great. And just a collaborative group of a whole bunch of folks that want to better wrestling within their states, but nationally as well. And like I said, I've kind of been working with you guys, directly for 6 months now, and I think it's been going really well, and I think it's only going to grow from there. And and if a year and a half from now I'm back in North Dakota, it'll make things a lot easier and make coverage a lot easier as well. So,
yeah. So, we really enjoy working with you too. But let's get into a little bit of this wrestling we got coming up.
Absolutely.
North Dakota State. Let's talk a little bit about them. They're a program that's kind of, they have their really good years. They're kind of, they're not a lesser tier. They're a pretty good team in the Big 12, which is, obviously one of the best wrestling conferences. So, what do you kind of think about them and in the Big 12, and where do they stand coming into this season?
Well, so here's the deal. NDSU, going back to their first transition, NDSU under Bucky Mon at the Division II level was a Division II power year in and year out, many national championships, and I can't give you the years offhand, but certainly one of the powerhouses of Division II wrestling, and ultimately they decided to make the bump up to Division I in all sports and then 1AA in football. We all know how that has gone, obviously. But Roger Kish did a pretty dang good job, I think, right? Roger Kish, obviously former University of Minnesota multi-time All-American, but did a pretty good job right out the gate of bringing, that initial success, which is, right, All-Americans. And so bringing All-Americans to NDSU within the first 3 or 4 years, right? And then back-to-back years, NDSU had Division I All-Americans and then, 2 All-Americans in a year, which was just fabulous. But now we're on kind of a drought. And so, it's been depressing for me to follow because we took guys into NCAAs last year with the expectation that they were going to be All-Americans. Josh Rodriguez was seeded 9th. And coming off of no All-Americans the year before, it was really important, I think, to get an All-American, get a kid back on the podium, right, and make a showing. And it ended up being a really disappointing finish for NDSU wrestling. I don't know that I've ever seen, probably been more disappointed as far as what my expectations were going in. Like I said, Josh Rodriguez was seeded 9th at 125, ended up going 1 and 2. Clay Ream, who's back this year, took the 6th seed and then lost his first match and lost to Pigdale Wrestleback. So he went 0 and 2. Ream is back this year, but he's been up and down, and that's, it's going to be some interesting matches there. So NDSU, I think their team is this year a lot stronger than maybe what they are individually. I think they're going to win some duels. I think, looking Iowa, Northern Iowa up and down, I think Northern Iowa is certainly favored, but I do think that North Dakota State can, pose some, maybe some problems for them in certain places when maybe 3 or 4 matches. And, if things really, really go their way, and at West Gym, I know that's going to be hard, it would be nice for them to come away, obviously, with now UNI, interconference as well. But, we're just at a point with NDSU where I really feel like we got to have a turning point. The team is good. I just don't know if I see that much individual success. Even with Ream back, I'm looking up and down the lineup going, we got a whole bunch of guys that could be national qualifiers this year. I think maybe there's 7 guys in NDSU's room that are, in the top 32, let's say, right? But how many of those guys are top 8? How many of those guys are top 16? That's to be seen, and those guys are going to have to prove that. So, the long and short of it is they're in a good position. They had a great recruiting class. They'll have Jared Franek coming in next year, who's a top-level talent right out of Fargo. Brandon Metz was a junior national runner-up last year, and so I think the future is certainly bright. They've got some interesting pieces coming in, but this year is a really big question mark, and so that's why I'm looking at these 2 duels going, let's see what these guys are made of, and it's going to tell a tale, let's put it that way.
So, you kind of hit on where I was going to go. Clay Ream is, He's probably the Bison's best starter. He's got the biggest name value. He's got the biggest credentials. But, I mean, who else is on this roster that you think has a chance to come out and kind of surprise people maybe, or who's somebody that you're, going to take them, like, wow, who's this guy?
Yeah, so, you kind of start at the bottom there, I guess. I think NDSU's two, double punch, or how do you put that? I don't know. I'm sounding like an imbecile right now. But 1-2 punch, how does that sound, Ross? There we go. I was looking for that. The 1-2 punch to start things out, I think, is very talented, still very young. But Paul Bianchi is a kid out of Wisconsin who I believe was a 3-time state champion, even might have been 4, but I'm going to go on a limb and say it was a 3-time state champ. He went to juniors, UWW juniors last summer, and tore through the 55 kilo bracket, or was it 57? I think it's 55 for juniors. Tore through that bracket, made the finals, and his only loss was to Dayton Fix. Obviously, we know what happened with Dayton, right? But so Paul Bianchi had a fabulous summer. Now he went into the trials, right, and was the top seed at the trials, and didn't fare as well. Really excited to see how Bianchi finished up this year. Now he had a hiccup of a loss last week at the Bison Open that I really didn't expect that he was going to have. So I think interesting opportunity to rebound here against some competition. I know UNI's 125. The way I'm looking at it seems to be very talented. And then obviously you don't know what you're going to get out of Iowa at 125 here, and I think that's probably something that University of Iowa is looking at too, is what are they going to get out of their 125-pounder, right? And these are going to be some important duels to figure that out. But keep an eye on Bianchi. He's got a beautiful left-handed high crotch. He really gets after it, and certainly has the ability to be really tough. 133 as well. Cam Sikora was a national qualifier last year, went 1-2 at the NCAA tournament, but the dude is a flat hammer on top. And again, Seth Gross is, the banner guy on top, I guess, from South Dakota State, right? He's a hammer there too. But I'm telling you, Cam, going through high school, he was a 5-time Minnesota State champ, was always, riding machine. And so, what are we going to get to see this weekend with him? The big question is he going to go? He didn't wrestle at the Bison Open. They pulled him from Daktronics 2 weeks ago with a minor knee injury. Spoke with Coach Garnett a little bit about that earlier this week, and he is very concerned as to whether or not they're going to be able to put Sikora out there. Now, they wanted this opening weekend in Iowa to expose guys like Cam Sikora to, the big atmosphere, the Carver Hawkeye-like situation. So they're going to want him out there, but he was non-committal last week as far as whether or not he's going to be there. If he's not, NDSU right now, just from a depth standpoint, isn't good enough to be competitive, from a backup standpoint with Northern Iowa and the University of Iowa. So we really hope that Sikora can get there, number one, because I think Sikora could score a few wins. But number two, I think it's important, again, for the Northern Iowa and Iowa to see what they've got there. So I'm really looking at 133 as a spot where NDSU can have a lot of success. A brand new kid at 41 named Sam Hampton. Be honest with you, I know nothing about him except that he keeps winning. Sam Hampton was a redshirt at 149 last year and had like a 4-9 record or 5-9 record. And now this season he demolished South Dakota State starter Henry Pohlmeyer at the Bison Open 14-0. And I'm looking at that going, Pohlmeyer, I'm not going to say he's in a high, yes sir.
Just make sure you're keeping it good on Pohlmeyer because he's from these neck of the woods.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm saying to myself, I know Pohlmeyer is a very respectable 141-pounder, right? And so when Sam, and I'm still holding out, on this Sam, this cat for NDSU, and then he beats Pohlmeyer the way he did, and I'm going, maybe he is more legit than I thought he was going to be. So again, it's going to be really interesting. What does he bring to the table? Great question. I don't think he's the type of guy that can go with a Vince Turk or whoever I was going to put out there this weekend. But you know what? He's surprised everyone up to this point. I don't think NDSU even thought he was going to have the spot, and now he does, and he's right there, and he's been impressive, and so we'll see what happens this weekend. Big thing for NDSU is they had this fabulous recruiting class 5 years ago, and a lot of people aren't going to remember that, but I do because it's been such a poor result since, right? NDSU Tisch came in and had the number 4 recruiting class in the nation, as ranked by Intermat. Well, now 3 of those seniors are all the same weight, 149 pounds, and they all had wrestle loss last weekend. Mitch Bingston's the big one. He was a 3-time state champ from the from Minnesota, 4-time state champ, from Minnesota. But then you've also got Mitchell Friedman, and you've got Kyle Gliva, who was a Fargo champion. Gliva, I'm sorry, I got to pronounce that right. Those three guys battled it out. Gliva won the spot, but then Gliva, I believe, had to default on the Bison Open last weekend. So you're going to get a solid wrestler. Bingston was a national qualifier as a redshirt freshman, then dealt with some injuries the next couple of years. You're going to get a solid starter there. So, that'll be interesting to see what happens. We mentioned Reem, 157, very talented kid, but he's so off and on. When Reem shows up, Reem beat Josh Shields from Arizona State. When Reem showed up, Reem beat All-American Sal Mastriani last year. And so he had wins that made him the 6th seed, and rightfully so, right? But then there's also been instances where Clay Reem has shown up and not shown up, and NCAAs was a great example of that last year, going 0-2, and so, that's going to be interesting to watch. The guy I'm really looking forward to seeing is at 165 pounds, Andrew Fogarty, and I don't know, is Marinelli, I think you're probably not going to see him this weekend anyway, correct?
I think the jury's still out on that. We talked to him a little bit, and he seems to think he's okay. He's held out a rest loss. Right. A lot of the starters didn't end up going to the Luther Open, so I know Tom Brand's the reason he brought in North Dakota State and the University of Buffalo to the Iowa City duels. Right. Because a lot of his guys weren't getting Division I matches, so I don't know if you see him in maybe just one duel, and this is obviously the match. This is the big match for him this weekend. So yeah. I think it's on the table.
Yeah, those two wrestled last year at Midlands, right? And it was a relatively close match. The thing about Andrew Fogarty is he's super talented defensively. So, he puts guys in tough positions, and his hips are rock solid. And so I think the match between Fogarty and Marinelli last year, and they were both red shirts, obviously. No, excuse me, Fogarty wasn't a red shirt, but was like 3-3 going in the third period or something like that. And then Marinelli, extended the gap, scored one takedown, and then I think scored one more. So final score was like 7-4 or something. But then Fogarty's certainly capable of going with anyone in the country. The problem is he has trouble scoring against the highest level guys. He's going to keep it close with everybody, but who's he going to score takedowns on? And the prime example was he wrestled at Daktronics 2 weeks ago and ended up with Isaiah White in the semifinals. And again, he and Isaiah White are tight, right? It's 1-1 going into the third period. And Isaiah White's, D2 national champion. Nebraska's really expecting him to step up and be an All-American for them this year. And ultimately, in the third period, he just wasn't able to fend off Isaiah White, at the end. Isaiah White gets the one takedown to Fogarty's none, and so Isaiah White wins the match. But I certainly think that's one that NDSU is looking at, too, is where do we stand in the country if we get a shot at Marinelli. It'll be interesting to follow for sure. 174 pounds, NDSU has a kid out of North Dakota by the name of Dylan Erbach. He was at Minnesota for a year. Not somebody probably that is going to give. And again, I have to be careful with my words here too. I love the kid, right? But he's probably a less than 500 Division I starter for NDSU. 74 and 84 are probably the spots where NDSU is really going to struggle this weekend. Tyler McNutt at 184. Again, has had a rough start to the season as well. So we'll see what happens there. And then we talked about it, Cordell Eaton, really excited to see how he fares, especially with Wilkie at 197. Eaton's got an opportunity coming back home to really make a statement that could be impressive because he started the year really well. 285, I wish. It's my hope that they would pull a red shirt on Brandon Metz and let him wrestle. But I'm like they'll pull the red shirt on everybody. So that's probably not going to happen. We'll see that. Other than Dan Stibro, who's also really good, with a fourth place finisher at the Union Nationals. Though I think he's probably outmanned if he ends up with even Isley and Stahl probably. But I'm interested in that Isley Stibro match because Stibro is not a bad wrestler. He's a guy I think is an NCAA qualifier. So, and I know you guys are very high on Mr. Isley there, and has really turned some heads, and I believe undefeated and Grand Du champ and things like that too, right? So, I'm looking at heavyweight. I'm looking at 165, and I need Secor to go at 133, and there should be some very interesting matchups if all that goes down the way it should.
Okay, well, You did an excellent rundown on the North Dakota State team, and I don't know how familiar you are with WrestleStat. It's a site that we've kind of promoted here in Iowa quite a bit. We're very familiar with the owner, and I'm just kind of looking. We'll just start with the Iowa duel, just kind of do a little bit more in depth here.
Yeah.
So WrestleStat has a 28-8 Iowa over NDSU. They also have the preset starter for Iowa was Paul Glenn instead of Phil Lau. So if you switch out Lau for Phil Laux, is it Laux or Lau? I never know. Do you know? Laux? Okay.
I don't know.
I think it is Laux. I always think the X is silent, but I don't think it is. So I think Laux.
I always think I'm a great last name guy, and then I had to be told by NDSU's coaching staff that it's Gleveland, not Glyva, if I screw it up again, they're never going to talk to me. So, they didn't say that, but you get the point. It's never easy.
No, yeah. But, they can't hold you to that on this podcast because Hager and I are admitted apologists for our terrible pronunciation. Usually Hager will just refer to guys by their first names. That's kind of his move. And it works for us. But I mean, most everyone knows what we're talking about. So just to go to that 133, if you put in Phil Laux over Paul Glenn in the lineup, obviously Phil got that win at the Luther Open. So Laux is probably going to be the guy for the big matchup. Maybe Glenn gets a start, but if it is Cam, I've got to think it's going to be Laux. Those two going to square off. Computer puts it just a decision, so it would be a 28-7 Iowa win by the computer. Just kind of looking at those first 5 matchups, I mean, I don't know if you have it brought up in front of you or if you want me to kind of go through them.
Yeah, go ahead, man. I'm pulling it up right now.
So the computer says Bianchi over Stickley by Major, Sykora over Laux.
Yep.
By decision, Turk over Hampton by Major, Sorensen by Major over Bengston, and Kemmer over Ream by decision. So, I mean, to me, looking at these matchups, I think 133 is a pivotal match. You kind of talked about it. Can be in an NCAA qualifier. Iowa really needed something out of 133. This is a huge weekend for Laux to step up, get a win. Like I already mentioned, Brands wants these wins for seeding at the end of the year, so this is a key matchup. This is a big weekend in general for 133 in Iowa. Byron Lantry for Buffalo is going to be there. He's ranked in the top 10 of the country by Flow. So this is a really big weekend. 2 really solid opponents coming in at 133 for the University of Iowa. As far as 141 is probably a little bit skewed in my opinion. The computer saying Major. I kind of looked through the Bison Open results, and you kind of said it.
Right now. Yep.
Yeah, and Hampton, just kind of surprised people. And he's winning some matches. He's doing some things that I'm not sure that's a major there. But I got to think Sorensen's able to put up Major, and Kemmer's probably the better guy at 57, which is unfortunate for you because your stud matches up with one of the 2 All-Americans. So I mean, but through those first 5 weights, is there anything you really disagree or something that you really think?
I couldn't agree more. I think Kemmer is a horrible matchup for Clay Ream. I think Ream prides himself a little bit on his ability to give up legs and scramble out of things. And obviously Michael Kemmer, in my opinion, is this side of Jason Nolf, right? The best at that in the country. And so just looking at that matchup, it's certainly going to be a tough one for Clay Ream to keep close, and I look at a guy who would be comparable, I guess, and Clay Ream wrestled Joe Smith in the Big 12 title match. And, these are just guys that, Clay Ream is very talented. He's certainly All-American caliber, but he misses out on that, that probably highest tier, whereas Joe Smith is probably able to compete with those guys a little bit more. You know what I'm saying? He's just not quite there from that perspective. So I think it's a bad matchup for Kemmer. I think it's beneficial for NDSU, obviously, if they can get Sykora in there with the potential to win 2 matches at 25 and 33. But I don't see them winning. And honestly, I like Sorensen getting a major at 49, and I like Turk getting a major at 41. Until I see Hampton do what Hampton's doing against against someone like Vince Turk, who, obviously we don't know what he's got because he's been injured, but I like him, in this match, I guess, over Sam Hampton.
So pretty much agreement, I should say, with the computer through the first 5. Looking through the next few matches here, obviously the other key matchup probably in this duel, the 3 big ones, I guess I should say, are 33, 57, then 165. We talked about Marinelli Fogarty rematch. Just looking at the computer, it's picking Marinelli to win again. I don't really know. Do you have any much more to say other than on that matchup?
No. I mean, just that, I like the 7-6 score prediction they have here because, like I said, Andrew Fogarty is going to keep it close with everyone he wrestles. The big thing is, can he scramble into a score on someone else's bad shot, or can he find an attack of his own to put the match in his favor? And I just don't think he finds that against Marinelli. I think you're going to see exactly what you see right there, a 7-6, 5-4 type bout that Marinelli, if they wrestle, ends up coming out on top. But I like Fogarty's chances if Iowa wrestles anyone else, obviously.
And then 74, you're probably going to get a little bit of uncertainty from Iowa. They got Joey Gunther, who won the wrestle off.
Yep.
Caleb Young, if he's, if Tom wants to send him out, he's probably neck and neck with Gunther. So I don't know if there's a lot of difference there. Maybe Young brings a little more offensive. He's a little more aggressive from neutral, but Gunther knows how to wrestle close. So the computer picks Gunther by decision. They got Bowman by decision at 184. And then, we'll hit on those last 2 matchups. But what do you think about 74-84 with what they got?
Dylan Urbach has a lot of great, I watched Dylan Urbach. Dylan Urbach wrestled at the University of Iowa with the University of Minnesota 2 years ago when the University of Minnesota was bad, downright bad. And I don't know if you remember that duel. But I think he wrestled. Who was wrestling 65 for Iowa 2 years ago?
2 years ago?
Not somebody, was it Gunther?
No, it would have been Patrick Rhodes.
Okay. Yeah, Patrick Rhodes, right. And Urbach kept it close with Patrick Rhodes for maybe it was 57. Who knows? Either way, he kept it close in this match for the third period and then completely gassed and fell apart. Urbach will keep it close if his tank is ready to go. A 7-4 score is likely, but again, it's not a match I see NDSU winning by any means. And then we move on to McNutt. And again, McNutt impressed me last year, but he hasn't showed me, he hasn't showed me that he's taken the next step again this year. So, he's going to be in this match. But again, I just don't know that he has enough offense, finding offense against high-level rooms, Division I, room opponents, a room like Iowa is what I'm saying, has been difficult for NDSU. So I think you got to give the edge to whoever Iowa's wrestling there, if it's Bowman. So,
yeah, Bowman, obviously North Scott boy, and you hit on Cordell Eaton coming home, another North Scott guy. So he'll be at 197. You're saying against Cash Wilkie. Eaton's been a guy that we really were wondering if he'd maybe break out last year. Cash Wilkie definitely broke out for Iowa last year at this weight, so this is looking to be a fine matchup. And then, of course, I think a lot of people probably a little bit surprised to see Sam Stoltz actually good to go for the season opener. But what Sam Stoll, how aggressive is he going to be is probably going to be the biggest question. So, I mean, really, these matches favor Iowa pretty heavily in the rankings, but it could probably come down to be a little bit tighter.
I think Cordell Eaton's going to bring it. I really do. I think he's looked really good early in the season. I like to think that I might be Homer here, but I really think Eaton's going to have a chance to win this match in the third period. Again, I could be wrong about that. We'll see what happens. But expect Eaton to keep that match close. Eaton was a very borderline NCAA qualifier. So, interesting story with these two. Obviously, Wilkie ends up qualifying for NCAAs with a wild card, right? Like late.
Yep.
The wild card Wilkie got to get into the NCAA tournament was one that was given up by the Big 12 when a West Virginia guy got hurt. Well, Cordell Eaton was the last man out in the Big 12, the first man out in the Big 12. And so NDSU's coaching staff was fighting with the NCAA hard as heck, saying that that seat was given up by a Big 12 wrestler, so that spot should belong to the Big 12, right? And so that Cordell Eaton should qualify for NCAAs, is my understanding of the matter. Ultimately, the NCAA decided, no, it's going to go to the first person in on a wild card basis, and I think that spot went to Cash Wilkie, if I'm not mistaken.
It sure did. Yeah, it was. It was pretty whirlwind, bit of emotions for Cash Wilkie.
And then Wilkie
was done.
And then Wilkie goes on like the run of a lifetime, and just impresses the heck out of everybody at NCAAs, obviously. But interesting backstory there. Again, expect Cordell Eaton to be close there. Not, it's in Iowa. Iowa guys wrestle well at Carver, obviously, so we'll see what happens. But I got to imagine Cordell's pretty excited to be wrestling back in Iowa as well. If Stoll's good to go, I'm a huge Sam Stoll fan. I think Dan Stibble's an NCAA qualifier, but I think Sam Stoll's one of the 5 best heavyweights in the country if he's healthy. So, Tech fall 19-3. I don't know. That depends. Like you said, that depends on the health of Sam Stoll. He could look really good and win 5-1. With 8 stalling points too, which I was really impressed with out of him last year too. He was really good at using the new stall rolls to his advantage, and to his favor. You got to use them. But I expect Sam Stoll to come out and dominate.
So there should be a lot of entertaining matchups in that Iowa duel. Definitely. This isn't a team to sleep on by any stretch of the imagination. So do you have any other wrap-up thoughts with Iowa and NDSU before we kind of move on to some of these UNI matchups?
No, I don't. I just think, like I said, NDSU was trash at NCAAs last year. They said we need to go out and we need to find a tougher schedule. We need to throw the kitchen sink at these guys. And you know what? The opportunities for them to go to Iowa City duels opened up as Iowa was looking to maybe strengthen Iowa City duels to some level, right? And I think it's great for both. I think it's great for NDSU because NDSU has really tried to recruit hard in Iowa as well. We mentioned Midkiff, right, coming in from Council Bluffs, and they've got a few others that have tried. They're really opening pipelines. I think Garnett is doing a good job opening pipelines to Iowa and Illinois, and he's doing a lot of work. And so, I think you're killing 2 birds too by going to Carver and getting your kids exposed, but then also going down to the University of Iowa and saying, hey, we're NDSU, and we want to be a nationally relevant program.
Yeah, and they're setting up camp here in Iowa. They're going to come into Iowa City, face Hawkeyes, and then they're just going to head just up the road there to head back, almost like they're going home, and then stop in Cedar Falls for a quick duel in the West Gym. Got a big matchup.
That's going to be a fun match, and I think I'm looking at I've already pulled up your wrestle stat here. And I don't know enough about Jacob Schwarm except for before I came on the podcast, took a look at some results. I tend to disagree with this first matchup. They have Bianchi winning here. What is your take on this one, I guess? And I've got to think Schwarm is probably favored, but maybe I'm wrong about that.
Without a doubt, this is just something where WrestleStat's not perfect, so fans listening at home, they probably don't really know how this really works. But it takes your history and these guys for them to move up the rankings. It takes a lot of data for some of these guys to move. So I think that's kind of what Jay Schwarm's a little bit of a victim of here. But if you look at what he filled in for Dylan Peters last year, Peters was obviously dealing with some injuries.
Yep.
Schwarm comes in. He picked up a huge win against Kyle Larson, a guy that was NCAA qualifier for Iowa State. That was a big win for the Iowa State duel. Give Doug Schwab a win on the road. Then his other huge win was beating Marlo McGee 5-1 at Missouri. So those were 2 really big wins. Kind of made you take notice. And then we fast forward to this year, and we've seen Jay, really take it to. He wins the Harold Nichols Open by beating Brock Hudkins of Northern Illinois there in the finals, who was, I know he was in the top 15 for Flow Wrestling. And then this weekend at the Grandview Open, I know he's obviously not wrestling D1 guys, but he was a hammer on top, 4 falls, 3 of them in the first period. So Schwarm's a guy that, he's tough on top, and he's kind of a guy coming into his own. I don't want to call him a developmental guy, but he was a guy that, you knew he wasn't going to be a Spencer Lee out of the gate, but he's got some good potential. Right. So I definitely think the computer's flipped on this one.
Well, we'll see what happens. I mean, like I said, Paul Bianchi's capable of beating. I came into this year saying Paul Bianchi's an NCAA qualifier, 2-2 NCAAs type guy as a freshman with really good All-American potential moving forward. So we'll see what happens. You can always shake off a loss from the weekend before, and, he's still learning, obviously, as a freshman as well. But I also think this match is hugely important. Now, obviously, this hinges on Socorro wrestling, but if Bianchi can sneak out a win here, I think that's maybe NDSU's best chance and maybe only chance of winning this duel, obviously. I think the pendulum swings strongly, I think, or at least relatively strongly for Northern Iowa, but here's a match that maybe NDSU can steal and, swing some early momentum, obviously, and get things going in their favor.
Yeah, and really that momentum could, be magnified at 133. You talk about, the thing about UNI, though, is they got Rudy Yates missed the beginning of the year. We're not sure if he's going to be back for this duel. And Jack Wagner has to default out of the Grandview Open due to concussion, so that's going to kind of leave that up in the air. So Cam Sikora is coming in, and now all of a sudden UNI might be looking at their third string guy at 133. And, I think there's some drop-off between Yates to Wagner, and so when you're going even lower to that, I don't think you got an NCAA qualifier as your third-string wrestler. Not very many teams have that luxury. So this is an opportunity. I still think Jay Schwarm's going to win that first match, but if an upset happens, you got a chance to steal 2 matches right out of the gate.
Yeah, that would be huge, obviously, for NDSU, and we'll see. And, I love Sikora in this match. Obviously, like I said, I think he's hammer on top. And honestly, I wish he was wrestling Rudy Yates. He needs these big matches because I think he can be really competitive towards the end of the season here as he continues to develop. And, I think Rudy Yates is the man. So, that's that as well.
Yeah, that's a little bit of your Illinois homerism coming out there.
Yeah, well, I mean, come on. You got all these, great Illinois guys at Northern Iowa. This man knows what he's doing, this Mr. Schwab, I tell you what.
Yeah, because the next guy in the lineup, 141,
there we go.
Albert. Yeah, he's a big name from your neck of the woods, too.
That's right.
Making the move up to 141. I believe he was, I can't imagine anybody beat him at the Grandview Open this last weekend.
No, I looked it up. I believe he was champ. So,
so he's obviously coming off a nice little season debut there. He's got a pretty inexperienced Sam Hampton wrestling in a pretty hot environment. So, this is a chance for Josh Albert to, if it is the third string at 133, this is a chance for Panthers to get back on track, I'm assuming.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I don't know what I'm getting out of Sam Hampton, and unless he is superhuman in his start to this season, he's definitely not beating Josh Albert. And that's just a reality of life. But I look forward to it. I look forward to the challenge too. So,
right.
And again, this is where I think you're really going to start to see Northern Iowa probably. They're taking 2 matches back too, because I think if you look forward at 49, the nice thing about a guy like Bingston is I don't think. Yeah, I could be wrong about this, and WrestleStats predicting it 7-3. That's about what I see there. Bingston's another guy, like Fogarty. They don't have tons and tons of offense that's going to wow you, but they're going to be really hard to score on. So, I like the prediction there of a Max Thompson 7-3 victory.
And that's very possible. Max has wrestled some tough matches. Obviously, there at the All-Star Classic, he won, on the last-second shot to beat Kolodzik there.
Yep.
So he's getting a little bit better at his clutch gene of scoring late, but he's had a lot of tight matches. So we'll see if this is the year he opens it up, and this is a good test for him early. You and I've got Cornell on Fridays at Cornell, so there's a lot going on this weekend where he's got to make weight Friday. He's got to turn around, travel home Saturday, and then he's got a duel on Sunday. So this could be a big opportunity for Townsend to go either way here. But 57, what are we going to see here? I don't even know who you and I is going to start.
Yeah, and that's going to benefit Clay, like I said, and I think Clay Clay has had some bad losses in his career. He went to Boise last year and lost to a freshman from Boise that no one in their lives had ever heard of, I guess, and I don't even remember the guy's name. So you got to the opportunity Clay has to hopefully, grab a win here and potentially get a major decision depending on who they're putting out there. And so you're not 100% sure who they're going to be using or what?
Well, Padmore is a returning starter, but Logan Ryan, obviously a big transfer. Both guys were top 100 recruits for their respective years. Ryan made his return, but he ended up defaulting that finals match, and I don't know if that was just, Schwab saying, hey, we don't want to wrestle this match here. We don't want to put it public because the duel was streamed, the Grandview Open was streamed. So I'm not sure if that was a tactical move or if it was an injury. I never really heard from Hager. That was something I was going to ask him until found out he was unavailable tonight. So really don't know what we're going to see at 57 for UNI. But, Moore wrestled tough last year. He went through some growing pains. But we're going to need to see, I hate to say, I'm trying to think of a better word to use than Moore since his last name is Moore. But we're going to need to see a little something different from him too. He's going to have to grow a little bit to take on some of these tougher guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I like, we keep talking about this match, and I keep swaying more towards maybe NDSU has a better shot to win this thing than I thought they did. So, at least at the very least making me happy tonight, about the chances. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I don't want to put it negatively here, but UNI kind of really opens the door when this is another thing we're not 100% sure on why Bryce Steyer's deciding to take a redshirt year. If it's something to just kind of give him a break, that he needs that. He's been grinding hard for years. So redshirt Bryce Steyer, that means maybe Dan Kelly, maybe Isaiah Patton at 165. I don't think that's really determined either, but we've talked about Andrew Fogarty and how tough he was with Marinelli. I think this is a match that, another way for the Bison to go back-to-back at 57-65.
Excellent. Yeah, Fogarty's going to have a tough time winning the big matches, but against guys that he's soundly better than, I don't worry about him losing matches to those guys either. You guys got a good one, though, coming up at 174. Should have a strong chance at a major decision, I think. Like I said, Urbach, just, 74 and 84, you're probably going to swing back two for you guys. So, ultimately you go Lujan. Is it Lujan? I believe it's Lujan.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then Drew Foster. A big thing for NDSU, and honestly, is just not giving up as many bonus points as possible. Obviously, you got two hammers there. NDSU into two spots that are a little bit weaker for them. So, not giving up bonus would be key if they want to win the duel, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, Max Townsend is obviously a bonus potential guy, but I really think UNI has just got the strength there at the upper weights between 74, 84 to kind of quelch out any, potential upset, keep the momentum there in Cedar Falls. So I'm going to have to agree with you. WrestleStat has both those matches going by major. For those not looking at home, I don't know if we're doing a good job saying those or not, but so that leads us into our last two matches: Cordell Eaton versus Schiedenhelm at 197, and then Carter Isley versus Dan Stribble to end the duel, probably, if they start at 25, I guess.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think Eaton, we like Eaton in this match, I'm assuming, right?
Yep, I would take him, I would assume.
Oh, gosh, Eaton wins this match, they go up 5, and maybe it comes down to a walk-off from Isley needing bonus. We'll see what happens. But I really like the opportunity in front of Cordell Eaton coming back to Iowa. I can't say it enough. It should be a lot of fun to watch him this weekend. And then, I like Stibble. I do, but, not as much as probably I like Isley. You guys love Isley, and, I'm willing to stick with you on that one. Stibble just doesn't have the offense I think Isley has, so that's going to cause him some problems here this weekend, and so you probably go 285. If UNI is not at full strength, you probably look at a 5-5 match split, and the bonus from 74 and 84 being the deciding factor. Unless NDSU can steal bonus at 25 maybe, but no, not 25, excuse me, no way.
They have to steal it at 33? 33 is kind of where I was thinking if UNI has to go to the third.
If Shakora goes, 33, maybe 57, but again, Lean's not a bonus point all-star either, so it's very interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah, this is obviously this is a pretty big duel. I mean, you don't really put a lot of emphasis on the duel of the season early in the season, but the fact that these two are Big 12 opponents now, this is going to weigh into seeding at the end of the year. So maybe you don't take it, so seriously of a loss, but at the same time, could put your wrestler in a worse off position when it comes to seeding, and all of a sudden, they should be the 3 seed and now they're the 4 seed and they draw, a worse quarterfinal match, and that can really change things when you're looking at those qualifying spots. So, I mean, you don't really want to overlook this duel. I know it's early season, but there's still quite a bit of importance on this. So that's why I'm pretty fired up about this. For IA Wrestle, we should have Nick Ryder. He's usually our man in Cedar Falls. Yep. Schwab's love him, so he should be coming at you guys live from there. So do you have any other final thoughts on this UNI duel? And otherwise, I got some questions that came into it.
Yeah, the one thing I would say is, gosh, if NDSU doesn't go with Sikora at 33 because he's injured, they might be staring that down the barrel at a forfeit unless they're going to pull a red shirt. The only guys that wrestled at Bison Open in Daktronics at 133 were Midkiff and Deegan. Sawyer Deegan was a 4-time state champ from Montana. I think Midkiff was a match from placing at South Dakota State Daktronics, and then Deegan finished 4th. So, I can't imagine they want to do that, but geez, if they have to give up a forfeit, that'd be miserable too. There's nothing I hate more than that, obviously. We'll just have to see what happens. Midkiff placed higher than Deegan at the Bison Open as well. So Midkiff could have had a tough Daktronics and turn around and his only loss at the Bison Open, which by no means is a tough open by any means, but you get what I'm saying here. But his only loss was to Seth Gross. So I like Midkiff a lot. I think he's going to develop well at NDSU, and hopefully fill a role for them. Other than that, that's all I got, man. We'll see what happens.
All right. Well, let me get to some of these questions that came in.
Yep.
So, and this one, I got something ready for it too. So, came in, is Coach Garnett the best dressed coach in NCAA wrestling?
Yeah, I mean, people love Jay Jaggers, but I like Garnett because he's like local. He doesn't, he doesn't talk the talk. He just walks the talk, if that makes sense. And yeah, and then the other thing I love about this guy is he is the wrestlers love him, man. I credit a lot of the recruiting things NDSU is doing right now because of Gerard Garnett. Yes, best dressed for sure.
All right. Well, it's season opener. Not sure what we're going to get. Iowa City duels, 3 duels for the University of Iowa. We got Iowa Central, Buffalo, and then this NDSU duel is the final duel. But I'm not going to deny that Garnett looks pretty fly. But Ryan Morningstar is a guy that usually likes to class it up. He's been known to wear a jacket. I mean, when you got the Brands brothers, this. Well, and who knows what Terry's going to wear? Tom's usually pretty clean, but Morningstar's pretty well dressed. So I'm really looking forward to that matchup between assistant coaches this weekend.
Yeah. The other thing I should note about NDSU, by the way, is those guys are fired up. Like, Kish is the type of the guy to get fired up in the corner. So I really expect there to be some exciting fireworks. When Bono and Kish face off in the SDSU NDSU matches, usually they nearly slow down. So, look forward to that. Kish does get himself worked up at times. So.
For sure. We got a question about Sawyer Deegan's potential. I know people are pretty familiar with Deegan, the name here in the state of Iowa, now that Jarrett Deegan, his brother, transferred to Iowa State. For those that don't know, both Sawyer and Jarrett were coached by a former state champion here in Iowa, Dylan Carew, also wrestled for Iowa City West in high school. Carew's back in Iowa, running his Big Game Wrestling Club. He's got a location in Montana and Iowa. You would think it'd be one thing to run, a camp here or, clubs in Illinois and Iowa.
I figured the Zaddix would be the only one doing Montana and Iowa.
Right. So, you got to find someone crazy like Dylan to run 2 clubs at the same time, that far apart. But we could talk a little bit about Sawyer's potential, but I think, as far as 133s go, and for Iowa, it's mid-kip we really want to know about, who, like you said, comes off that second place finish there at the Bison Open. What kind of ceiling do you see on mid-kip? And then obviously he's going to have a battle there with Deegan there for some time to come.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting because I think number one, you've got Cam Sikora, who's only a redshirt sophomore, sitting at 133 pounds. So what I would love to see is the spot that NDSU, and I don't know the size on any of these guys, but I would love to see a mid-kiff or a Deegan grow into a strong 141-pound spot, which would be a spot that NDSU is in dire need for right now. But I've loved both these guys the last 2 weekends, to be honest. Both Midkiff and Deegan battle hard as heck. And I came in knowing a lot about Midkiff and kind of, the Iowa guys are certainly more well-known and because of the work that's done from your guys' end and whatever else, right, than what a guy from Montana. So I was really expecting McGuire Midkiff to come in and do good things. Had a tough, like I said, Daktronics Open, in which he did not place, but then went forward to the Bison Open and like I said, really represented well. Again, it's not the best tournament you've ever seen, but I think Midkiff's going to be great. I think there's a spot in the lineup for Midkiff down the road, and I really hope he gets that. And Jeepers, the room is tough because I didn't know what to expect from Sawyer Deegan. You had more backstory on Deegan than I did, but he impressed at Daktronics. Finished fourth, I want to say, and lost to Jeepers, who did he lose to? I keep saying Jeepers. People are going to think North Dakota. People are going to think North Dakota is people say Jeepers. I don't want to swear on the podcast, but Deegan's only lost. Both of the guys, only losses were to. I guess Deegan lost to Riley Molitor and Midkiff pounded Riley Molitor. So, gosh, I like them both, man. I really do think. I think the future's bright for both of them, and I hope we can find space for both of them as well.
Yeah, obviously, it's not a perfect thing to project a brother's size onto another one, but you look at Jarrett Deegan, a guy that he's so long. That's something we saw out of Deegan before his senior year of high school, and he just looks like a guy you could probably fill out. And Jarrett did into a 49-pounder, so I'm kind of wondering if he could grow up to 57. So I got to imagine hopefully Sawyer can put on a little bit, like you said, and spread some of them out.
I think that's the prototypical Montana guy body, by the way. Every Montana guy I've ever seen be good nationally is like 6 feet tall, 133 pounds, with long, lanky, lean muscle. Okay, maybe not all of them, but you know what I'm saying. I mean, those guys, and their hammers on top always, too. So,
It's kind of like when you see a big dude from Minnesota, you're like, he's definitely a good heavyweight. It's just, you just know they're all cut from the same bolt cloth.
Absolutely. You're dang right, man.
A couple other questions. I mean, you have a pretty good base of Iowa knowledge, so I don't feel too terrible throwing these questions to you. More competitive team, Iowa or UNI?
This season?
We'll just look at this season.
Who's going to be more competitive this season, the University of Iowa or UNI?
Yep, that's the question that came in.
Well, I mean, you're looking at all these holes from Northern Iowa, and like you said, Northern Iowa had a lot of nice pieces coming into this season. You're talking about the red shirt of Steyr, obviously. I certainly would never hide my Iowa fandom by any means, but I think that Iowa has a great chance to still be on the cusp of a top 5 finish in the country this year. Is it going to happen? I can't say that for sure, but I'm staying tuned, and Iowa has some pieces they can use that would vault them really highly, obviously. It's probably not going to happen, but a kid can dream, can't he?
That's right. Obviously, the big names are Spencer Lee, Jacob Werner, and the big difference between last year, I mean, I guess I should say 2 years ago, because last year we saw Tom Brands open up a little bit more, and Alex Marinelli was on the table. I think, he acknowledged that day one. And this year he's openly saying, these guys have got a chance. Spencer Lee is pretty much going to come down to his health because Lee has told him he wants to wrestle. And then there's Pat Downey, which you don't know what you're going to get out of there. But, if they can add a guy like Spencer Lee, Pat Downey, obviously Iowa's floor raises a little bit. And UNI is really, we talked about it on our last week's podcast that, that everyone was talking about this could be the year UNI makes a push to the top 10, and they got a lot of good talent there. But when you take a guy like Bryce Dyer out, you open yourself up to no mistakes in order to achieve your goals.
No margin for error now, for sure.
That's right.
I will say this.
Go ahead.
Iowa wrestling fans are right. And again, I'm as big of an Iowa fan as you'll ever find, but I would love to see, and it should happen, Doug Schwab should be wrestling at Iowa and then at West every other year. I think it'd be sweet. I think it's great for the state of Iowa. I think it needs to happen. I don't think you need to legislate it by any means, but, I would love to see that happen. And then, the other thing I'll add to the Iowa end of things, I think Brands deserves a lot of credit for, he's really, I think, he's really modifying his recruiting strategy as he's become a coach from what he was 10 years ago to what he is now. And I think there has been an evolution of the Iowa program as well. I would love to see that evolve into them wrestling UNI, but I think you're going to start to see it affecting their performance, for people that are depressed that they're not winning NCAA titles right now or whatever. I do think that they're on the horizon for sure. Maybe I'm excited, obviously, but
I mean, that's something we obviously talk about whenever the topic comes up. Actually, it comes up so often that we kind of only hit on it every now and then, but you got a little bit of a different take since you say you're an Iowa fan, but you're not really surrounded and living in it, and you're not hearing it all the time. So
exactly.
you do bring a little bit of a different perspective, but I will say that we're pretty pro Iowa versus UNI. We would love to see it this year, any year, doesn't matter. And we've told that to Schwab, and you don't know who's telling you, who's feeding you a little bit of a line, and so I don't really know what the disconnect there and why it doesn't happen, but obviously it's something that should be, and I don't think it needs to be, if it has to be what the basketball situation is in Iowa, where Iowa plays, Drake one year and then they play UNI the next year, if that's what it has to come down to, where they force them to go to Wells Fargo Arena to do a duel like this, I'd be all for it, but I think it should just be happening on their own. But
sure, and in North Dakota, here's the deal. In North Dakota, we dealt with this, and we are still dealing with this with North Dakota State and the University of North Dakota football. Put on my Norwegian voice for that, right? But those guys left the NCC, and it became a we're tougher than you contest between NDSU's admin and UND's admin. You know what I'm saying? Saying, well, you know what? We're not going to come back and play you again. You left us. And now they're both in Division I AA. And now still they're going, oh, well, we're not going to play you every year. We're not in the same conference. Why would we do that, right? And then, the losers end up being the North Dakota football fans, right? All they want to see is UND and NDSU play every year. And it would make millions of dollars in commerce in Fargo and Grand Forks one Saturday every summer as well. So, you're going to have those battles wherever you go. This is one that you're facing in Iowa. It should be a no-brainer, and as it should be a no-brainer for football in North Dakota. So,
I gotcha. The final question we got, I do feel this is just a little unfair to project this on, but the question is more potential AAs on the current roster. I mean, how do you really project that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because you and I...
Who are we talking between?
Oh, sorry, this is still between you and I and Iowa.
You and I and Iowa. Gotcha. I mean, I think Jacob Warner's a 4-time All-American when he steps on the mat. So,
I mean, yeah, when Iowa brings in two guys like Lee and Warner, they obviously had a little more upside. And
sure.
if you look at the last few classes between, I mean, Schwab's biggest class was their sophomores now, and they've only got one All-American honor between them. But obviously, Lujan and who else is in that class? That Holschlag. They got a lot of guys that can break through and finish as All-Americans, but I really don't know how you really project that, because you don't know if something like an injury is going to happen to Spencer Lee again. I mean, there's just too many crazy scenarios. I don't feel like it's a very fair comparison. But, I mean, if you're just going to look at recruiting rankings, you're going to try and project these guys what they did in high school, it's probably Iowa, I would guess.
Yeah, you know, and I don't like making. I don't like ruffling feathers necessarily, but you know, I don't know that I want Northern Iowa. Doug Schwab wants Northern Iowa to be comparing, themselves to Iowa, right? And that's a good thing. They should be. Like, there's no doubt about it. But at the same time, expectations have to be realistic, and you have to look at the fact that, Iowa legitimately has two guys that are going to be. There's no doubt in my mind that Spencer Lee, and this is when you don't even factor in a guy like Marinelli, you don't even factor in a guy who I think Marinelli could be a four-time All-American. 165 is a loaded weight class, but I think Alex Marinelli is capable. I think he has a fabulous post double leg that can score on everyone in the country, including Mark Hall in freestyle matches. The guy's no joke. And so, you got Kemmer. There are four-time All-Americans on top of four-time All-Americans in the Iowa room right now. And those guys don't come on trees. How many four-time All-Americans are there in Iowa history? 18, right. 19, something like that, right? So, you could be entering into a nice little golden age of Iowa wrestling here, too, from an individual standpoint, where things turn around for them. And, Northern Iowa's clearly on the up and up as well, but Iowa's certainly not at a down stage as much as you think, fourth place the last two seasons or whatever is something to shake a fist at. So,
right. I think for me, especially as a UNI alum, it's just I want to see Doug take this program to a top 10 finish. I want to see him do it back-to-back years. He's got the personnel to do that now.
Absolutely.
He's definitely loading up on this class. Anybody that follows in the state of Iowa knows how good Doug Schwab's done picking this year's class. He's got, it's very similar to his number 4 ranked class of those sophomores of Schwarm, Thompson, Lujan, and Steyer. So it's very similar that he went out and found guys at pretty much every weight, found maybe another guy that they'll overlap, and you get a little bit of competition to see who comes out on top, and you ended up getting some good guys out of the deal. So definitely just kind of want to see UNI continue their trajectory, and maybe, the state of Iowa is going to be back to where they're having 3 teams in the top 15 annually.
And that's what the last point I was going to make, Ross. This is what you desire. This is what Iowa guy who's not really an Iowa guy desires. I desire Iowa State in the top 10. I desire Northern Iowa in the top 10. And I desire Iowa in the top 10. And I desire them battling each other and hating each other. And you know what? From that perspective, it couldn't be a better year to be an Iowa wrestling fan. Let's be honest.
That's right.
And you can look at what went down with, and you could throw the Gilman part of it out, but look at what went down with Fight Night or whatever you want to call it, right? No one knew about that. No one cared about that until what? Until all of a sudden, now everything's back, right? Now we've got 3 head coaches that want to beat each other. We've got Iowa State on the rise. We've got Northern Iowa already on the rise, and we've got Iowa where it is. And let's make things happen, man. And let's put out the best wrestling in the country again. And in that respect, I'm an Iowa guy too, I guess. So that's great.
You're gonna say spoken like a true North Dakotan.
Well, that's right. Hey, and so here's my pop quiz for you. Who are the 3 North Dakota All-Americans from the University of Iowa?
God, Steiner, and
yep, that's 2.
Yeah, I don't know who the third would be. That's
How do we give away a prize to someone? How can I give something? So, we'll give my Iowa tickets to. I can't get you the ones for the Iowa City duels yet. Can we give my Illinois tickets Friday, December 1st to whoever can get you the answer?
Hey man, if you want to put those on the line, we'll definitely open the competition up. But we might need a tiebreaker. Or you just want the first one to get it right.
First response, man. First response.
All right, you have
response to now. How do you get this? To your email? To your Twitter?
I was just gonna say. So we're gonna make the rule. This is gonna be it'll be tweeted out. But whatever you do for your response, you got to tag at IA Wrestle and you got to tag at ND Headlock. Both handles have to be tagged. You give us the 3rd All-American for the University of Iowa from the state of North Dakota. We gave you
they're all Steiner from Bismarck. Brothers.
They're all from Bismarck. We gave you the Steiner brothers. Yep, you just need one, and you get that, and we'll hook you up with courtesy of Rick. You guys got to
give 2 tickets.
Got to give him a shout
Illinois at Iowa. Isaiah Martinez, senior year. Alex Marinelli's on the ticket. Row 16, Section E, Seat 7. I don't know where the heck that is, Ross. Okay, but it's got to be good. Last year it was right behind, or 2 years ago it was right behind Egham. I know that for sure.
So, I mean, this is a pretty sweet deal. All you got to do is get the last All-American from the state of North Dakota, not named Steiner. So we'll open that up. Yeah, dude, that's very generous of you. So someone's going to be a lucky fan.
Absolutely. Hey, thanks for bringing me on, buddy. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So just thanks for everyone tuning in to episode 103. Hope to see you at the Iowa City Duels or at the West Gym. Rick won't be there. He's going to be taking care of the kids, but show some IA Wrestle and ND Wrestle some love this weekend. We'll still be knocking out coverage, I'm sure. So thanks again for joining us, Rick, and thanks for everyone listening. We're at IA Wrestle. This was Potentially Dangerous.